Hazy IPA. Something I always get.
This is Danny's time to shine.
No, I mean, I wanted hazy IPAs. There are several names for this, but I wanted hazy IPAs since I began in the brewery, and it was very hard to sell. And suddenly, I would say 2 years ago, it changed completely, and finally people got it. Salut zusammen.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome back to the Birtel Craft Beer channel. And today we're gonna have a nerdy talk about the hazy IPA.
Oh yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, hazy IPAs especially I think they still are very trendy, and they have a lot of names. So people say, "Oh, you have an hazy IPA. Do you make an IPA as well?"
Yeah. New England IPA, hazy IPA,
Vermont IPA.
Vermont IPA, yeah. Oh, sorry.
Ooh.
That's a Swiss party foul.
Mm-hmm. Cheers.
Double. Tasting good.
Gives me that summer feeling.
So yeah, the hazy IPA, you hear New England IPA and Vermont, and the reason for that is this particular offshoot of the hazy IPA evolution is credited for starting at Heady Topper in Vermont.
The Alchemist.
The Alchemist, correct. And basically, it's a beer that is kept intentionally hazy. When we say hazy, we're referring to the fact that you cannot see through it. West Coast IPAs, which were sort of the previous iteration of modern IPA, were almost crystal clear. Sometimes they'd have a little bit of haze from the chill and proteins in there, and it was something us brewers worked to achieve. We wanted that crystal clear, light body. And this evolution completely rebelled against that previous style, and it embraced the high protein content and kind of turbidity of the beer. And the reason for that is because these proteins, when in conjunction with dry hopping, retain the haze and retain a lot of aroma, flavor, and they also give it a really kind of velvety mouthfeel. It's really interesting. I'm a bit of a old school guy. I like the clear, crisp IPA typically, but this has been really fun for me because it's not a style of beer I had really been making until I started at Birtel. So I've been learning along the way with this style.
Which is funny to get an American brewer, and he does NIPAs the first time in Switzerland.
Yeah.
Wait a moment. You haven't done... Jesus. This is something you didn't tell in the introduction.
In the interview, yeah. Oh, yeah, I can do that. Sure.
No, but back at, what was it? The brewery in America?
Wicked Weed.
Wicked Weed?
Yeah.
You didn't do any...
We were experimenting with them about the time that I left, and it's actually really funny because that's about the time that these styles were really coming into prominence. And before that, the same way that Heady Topper is sort of the prototypical hazy IPA.
The late 90s? No.
Late 90s? I'm not that old. No, this is, mid 2000s. And so what you saw was this style kind of starting to take prominence. And before that, like Heady Topper was the kind of ideal for hazy IPA. Pliny the Elder would be sort of the ideal West Coast IPA for in our minds, and that beer has more bitterness. It's crystal clear, and it's much drier. It focuses a little bit more on the kettle, the hot side addition of hops, a lot of Whirlpool hops, but still has a really good backbone of bitterness where these New England styles, they tend to have very little, if no, upfront bittering hops in the brewing process. And instead, they focus almost entirely on cold whirlpool hops and dry hopping. And that's really the star. The challenge with these beers, of course, is you need to drink them fresh. And you need to keep them cold and take good care of the beers. But when you do, you're just absolutely hit with this, complete bouquet of tropical fruit and citrus, a little bit of spice, but it's really the dry hopping that drives this style. And it's really fun to play with as a brewer, and I've actually really started to enjoy making these beers. The other big thing is with more traditional IPAs or previous iterations, you were using basically pure barley malt instead of other adjunct malts. And this beer is over 30% oats. And any brewer or home brewer out there who's tried brewing these styles will know the pain and struggle of lautering these beers, because the oats kind of become quite gelatinous when in the mash process. And interestingly, this is a bit nerdy, but oats themselves don't have a husk when they're brewed. We use flaked oats or rolled oats.
A husk?
Yeah. So in barley, the husk is where all of the enzymes are contained. And those enzymes are essential to turn the starches that are in your barley kernel into sugars. It's that enzymatic activity. That's why we mash beer. Oats don't have that, so you have to use them in conjunction with something, that contain the enzymes. So that's why we use it in conjunction with barley. And yeah, it's much more difficult to lauter because it becomes kind of doughy in the mashing process. But those oats are another really important element, and that's something that people don't quite talk about as much. People focus a lot on the hops, and they kind of neglect to talk about how important the oats are, because those oats not only give it that haze, the protein that's in those oats gives it the stable haze, they also give it that really cool mouthfeel. And anyone who's tried New England IPA and maybe can't put a finger on it, it's that almost chewy, velvety mouthfeel that you get.
I mean, there's another name that would be Juicy IPA.
Juicy IPA, we forgot that one.
Yeah.
And the juice is certainly coming from the sweetness, because there tends to be typically a bit more residual sweetness after the fermentation. And that protein haze that's created, that turbidity that's created by the oats, helps suspend the phenols and the acids that dry hopping contains. And it helps to kind of link them together and hold them in the beer. And that's why you just get these unreal aromas and these more juice-like components with a hazy IPA.
Yeah. Now that was a wave of nerdy.
Oh yeah,
nerdy hazy IPA knowledge. But this is why we are here, to suck all the knowledge out here. This is also something I experienced a lot. That hazy IPA is really also a beer for the non-beers drinker that find a new entryway into the beer world.
Yeah.
And again, hazy IPAs have the name New England IPAs. The shortcut is NIPA. Juicy IPA is the same thing. Vermont IPA is the same thing. East Coast IPA is the same thing. Yeah. And the topic is rather on the sweet, fruity side, less on the bright, bitter side.
And not as dry either. The West Coast IPAs tend to be very dry, really well attenuated, fermented almost completely. So there's not a lot of residual sugar.
Yeah.
It's a much drier.
Yeah. So, our hazy IPA, you get that in our online store or in the brewery all year round. It's also funny in our core how do you say core range? The hazy IPA grew very fast in the last 2-3 years. It was always in Birtle was the craft lager was number one, followed very close by the red ale.
Yeah.
And now hazy IPA is pushing the red ale a bit away.
Yeah. And it's a similar trend. The red ale is more of a kind of traditional American
it's a
West
bit
Coast.
a harder beer, a bit a bit a bitterer beer, and this one is, especially in the summer days, very pleasant, very colorful,
smooth drinking.
Fun beer to drink. So that was our hazy IPA. Thank you so much. Thank you, Richard.
Oh, no problem.
And see you next time.
Yeah, make sure to leave some comments. If you subscribe to our channel, it really helps us kind of grow this thing. If there's things you want to hear or explore more while we prattle on, please let us know in the comments.
Thank you. See you soon.
Cheers.
Ciao, ciao.